Yeah.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to DNS Ministry Stronger Together Ministry. We are excited about tonight. We have Pastor Pastor Evan and Lady Greta, Pastor Lorenzo and Lady Greta. Is it? Are you a pastor? Because I don't want to keep miss.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Lady
No,
Greta.
she's
No.
not. She's just
Okay,
no, not yet.
yeah, amen. On here tonight. But no, we excited to have you all. Such great women. Man and woman of God. It is so funny because we met them earlier this year and fell right in love with them. We just happened to be sitting at the same table.
Right.
Mhm.
Felt like we knew each other forever. Thinking each other something, but felt like we knew each other forever. So it has been a blessing. You all both have been a blessing to our lives. So we're excited about tonight and what God is doing in marriages. I am Pastor Shamika. This is Elder David. One of the things we do on our ministry, in our ministry, Stronger Together Ministry, we tell people this is our thank you. So anytime that God heals something, anytime God delivers, you have to make sure you go back and say thank you. And so our marriage ministry is our thank you to God. It's not only to help other people, but it's our testimony. We laugh about it. We've been married about what, 19 years? 19 years this
I
year.
still can't believe it.
Yeah, 19 in December. And if you listen to us for the first time, you'll hear us tell us our story about how we got married, was married for about 7 years, got divorced, and then in that same year got remarried again. And so it's been a long journey, but we're here. We thank God for
Yeah.
for God for restoration and all that God is doing. So,
Mhm.
Pastor, tell us about you, and Lady Greta. Tell us about your ministries and your ministry and what do y'all do, and tell us about the podcast before we start.
Okay, well, the ministry is Living in Grace Ministries, and I've been online for about 3 years now. And the reason I started it was because God had pushed me to stop preaching and to start teaching.
That's good.
And at first I was like, God, but I like teaching and the hooping and hollering. But God said people need to know what they're shouting about. They need to know why they're shouting. So he said, come out of the preaching and start teaching the truth in the word so they'll understand and have a stronger foundation. So Living in Grace Ministry was born, I think it was 2019, because it was right before about a year before the pandemic. So I was lucky enough to be established versus hopping in with everybody else trying to get started and trying to fumble through. So I praise God for that. And then the first and third Saturday of every month, we have It Takes a Village podcast. And that's just basically to bring back the village concept. Like to say, stronger together. If we work together, everybody in the village can bring something. There's nobody too small, nobody has too little. Everybody work together and we can definitely do more. So that's part of what we do. Well, I'm not doing all the other various things, playwriting and stuff. So
Oh,
a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. But the most important thing, like I say, is my marriage because and the reason I say a lot of people don't understand, because I always say that she's perfect. And when I say that, she even say you don't say that, but you have to
yeah.
understand if we are to, as men, if we are to love our wife as God loved us, when God looks at us, he looked through the lens of Jesus, and the blood of Jesus covers all our imperfections. So when he sees us, he sees perfection.
That's
So
good.
as a husband, I look at her the same way. I look through the eyes of Jesus, and Jesus covers all her flaws and her imperfections, and I see perfection because that's what God blessed me with an angel. So that's why when I say she's perfect, that's why I say that. So
That's awesome. My husband used to say that. I stopped saying the same thing, so I guess I stopped. So how long have you all been married?
we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary
Praise God.
May 31st, which was also
March.
March 31st, which was also her birthday. So we just celebrated that. But we actually been together since November of 2008.
Wow. Okay.
Thanks to the 20, I think it was like the 24th of November was when she let me know that, okay, what you gonna do.
So,
So
so what we're gonna do here? We moving forward. We stand still. So how did that conversation? Because since we're talking about before I say I do, so that period of time before you got married and you was dating, and so Lady Greta, I see you was ready, and I'm assuming both of you was ready. So how did that conversation started?
well, I mean, well, the good thing that we were really friends before we even considered or even thought about marriage, because I was going through like a very, very dark time in my life. I didn't care about nothing, and I had kind of gave up on life. I quit dreaming, quit having visions, and I was just like, hey, if I wake up in the morning, I go to sleep at night, whatever happens in between is good with me.
Wow.
That was, that's where I was, and she never would allow me to stay in that dark moment. She'd be like, hey, let's just go out. And I'm like, I don't want to go out nowhere. And we just began talking, and she really became a friend. She never tried to change who I was. She accepted who I was.
That's good.
And so we just got to be really good friends. And this is how we end up actually, I guess I'll say, starting to date. I had a nephew that came in town. And I didn't know nothing about how to get in. But my sense of direction, I tell her, I used all of my ability to direct or find anything to find her. After that, my direction was shot. So I said, well, he was coming to town. I said, well, let me call Greta, because I know she know all about the place, and she can get around anywhere. So that was when the first time we really kind of officially went out. And after that, the rest is just kind of history. But it was, I mean, and again, she never tried to put in an ultimatum or anything, but I could just tell from her conversation that she wanted to know, what we gonna do here. Are we gonna date? We're not gonna date. What's going on? So that's kind of how it started.
Because I think you have to have that mentality that you are dating to get married, and not just dating to just be dating. But you need that. So what are we doing here? Are we ready to shift? Are we ready to move because we're dating to get married? So I think that's awesome. Because sometimes you spend years and years and years just dating to date, and then you don't have the attention to get married. And sometimes you can be dating for 15 years and then get married. There's nothing, there's nothing at the end of it. There's no goal. And so I think I love that. So I think that is very important. I think that's something, before you say I do, you have to learn how to be friends. We talked about how we got married at a young age. So, of course we was friends. Well, we kind of just started dating, really. We started dating, but it took us later on in life to learn how to have that foundation of friendship. It was your husband, the father of our kids, in kind of business setting. We went straight from, we tell people we had the honeymoon before we had the marriage. So it's funny because we got engaged, and then I got pregnant, and then we got married. So we kind of missed the step there, but we didn't learn how to be friends till after our children got a little older, until the second time we got married. So I love the simple fact that you said you have to learn how to be each other best friend.
Yes,
it's so important to be. And I think so, because outside you have a whole bunch of influence on the outside. That it's different when your foundation is built off of friendship. Your foundation is built off of love. Your foundation is built off, let's just take the business of marriage away and let's enjoy marriage. I know some people say, well, God didn't put y'all together to be happy. Yes, he did.
Right.
He did. Forever together, you need to be happy. So what are some of the tough questions? Oh, I'm sorry, baby. Go ahead. He said he got it.
I was waiting for a pause. I was going to ask, was it easier for you guys to transition? Being friends first to transition into dating.
No, I mean, when I first seen him, and I did have no clue, because I asked God, we were working at the same company.
Wow.
And I happened to we came passing each other. And I said, God, why did me and that man just make eye contact? And he wasn't interested in me, and I wasn't we didn't even know each other. It was just seeing somebody. And then months down the line, that was why, because this was my husband.
And I think the transition is easier because a lot of people, they get married, but they're not actually friends.
That's good.
And then when they have a disagreement, they don't have nothing to fall on.
That's good.
So there's sometimes when we have disagreement, and she'll say, well, as a friend, let me tell you this. And that way, okay, I'm listening, because I'm not, I don't want to hear nothing that the wife has to say. We don't want to talk right now. But as a friend, and see, we're able to have that layer in our relationship. So there are times that we still can communicate because we have a strong friendship, and we hit that first. So we always can fall back on that friendship. So,
were you a pastor before you all was married? Were you in ministry?
I was in ministry, but I had gave that up too. I was done with. I ain't want to have nothing to do with. I ain't want to talk to God. I ain't want to hear nobody talk about God or none of that. This is what I had said, and I even told her before we started dating. This is what I had planned for my life. I said, I'm gonna get out here. I'm gonna get in these streets. I'm gonna get busy, and I'm gonna just enjoy life. And whatever happens, happens. I had no aspirations to do anything. And she was like, yeah, okay. Because, I would tell her, we can be friends and, it's cool. But that was the only thing I ever seen or had looked for, because I had been so hurt through relationships and in ministry that I was like, well, it's just not worth it. I don't want to do that. So I had been preaching for years before I was being a pastor. I had always told God, that's something I never do. I was like, no, God, you find somebody else. I fought that for years. I was like, it's too much. It's too much.
I think that's something we don't talk about. Not just being in ministry, but dealing with past trauma, past hurt before marriage, because one of the greatest things that we was told during marriage counseling, and that it was not our marriage wasn't broken, it was outside issues affecting our marriage. So before you say, so I know you all counsel people, married couples or engaged couples or people thinking about marriage or moving that way. So how do you tell them to handle, because especially, now there's so much layers on people. There's so much, hurt, trauma, different things that now you're trying to become one, but you have these two things that are pulling you back, or these three things that kind of divide you. So what advice do you give somebody that is coming into marriage with baggage or with trauma or with something that can be upsetting to the marriage?
I would say you look at that person as if it's one of your best friends out there. And the same advice and that you would give that person, and that same grace is the same thing you need to give that husband.
That's good.
Or wife.
Yeah.
Because what I say is, and if you are going on a trip and you've been in Florida, you've been just enjoying yourself there, you dress for Florida. But when you go to Alaska, everything is different. You got to dress for where you at. You've got to learn to unpack that baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, if you're going into a relationship and you haven't had time to fully unpack it, you have to allow that person that you're going to be with help you to unpack that.
Yeah.
So they know what is your baggage, what is your issues. Because if certain things that you do set me off, but you don't know why, you think, well, we must have a problem. And it's something that has nothing to do with the immediate time. So you have to fully discuss. And like with us, the very first date, I walk in the house, I sit on her couch, and I told her my whole everything. I always done, even to my dental history. Look, this because I didn't want no surprises. And she was looking at me, and I just for probably 4 hours, and I just talked about what I've been through, and I just because I wanted her to know this is what you get. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of garbage, a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff. I want you to know this is who I am. So that way you put out a lot of the fires before they get there, because you have friends and family who will try to put you on Front Street when they see you in a new relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, have you heard from so-and-so lately? Or, and it's like, come on, but that's just life. So I try to give her as much information as I could.
That's good.
And that way she knew what the baggage was, because everybody has baggage.
Yes.
Whether you've been married, haven't been married, or whatever, if you've lived, you have baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, the reason they have issues because they allow fear to keep that baggage hidden. And then when it come out, it's like, wow, I should have known that, 3 years ago, or we've been married for 5 years now. I'm just hearing this.
That's good.
So,
yes.
I think that's awesome. I think that is so great. I think because when we first got together, I think he told me his life story. I think he had to learn mine as we go. That is awesome. We was just in a conversation about a month ago when we was talking about something, and somebody was like, oh, I better, stop. And he's like, you ain't gotta stop. She already knows everything. Like I already told her. So it's not a, we're not just
no surprise.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing. Before you say I do, you have to be comfortable enough to trust that person, and you got to be open enough when that person is sharing something with you. You don't start looking at those as as something. Oh, I'm gonna bring that back up when we have a fight. So now that you retreat, now I'm like, I remember when you told me your mama didn't love you, and this is why you do this.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be so careful about those boundaries. When you getting married, like there's certain things we cannot bring up when we fighting, or when we having a discussion. That we ain't fighting, but having but when we having discussion, that's a boundary to it. Because I think we're gonna go for him below the belt, and so
not we.
In 2010 and bring that back up, but now we establish boundaries. Just because you told me this, I can't use this against you. And I think that's something that you have to establish before you get married, and learn each other trigger points. So you can't bring things that we know is going to trigger us just because I want to win the fight. So I think that's so important to establish boundaries within before you say I do.
And what we used to do, and I always tell people when I'm counseling them or whatever, in the first couple of years of your marriage, whatever, or it could go beyond, but at least in the first couple of years of either dating or in your marriage, have every so many months, have your safe period, a time where you can sit down, no judgment, no nothing, just say, okay, today we're going to discuss how I feel, what you may do that I like, what you do I don't like, how it bothers me. And it's not a judgment situation, it's a learning process. That way we can sit down and we make an agreement. Whatever is said at this table during this time, it cannot be used, it can't be weaponized.
So how do you process that? Because you can say it, Like, so how do you as a person, or how would you tell somebody to process that information? Because if somebody drop a bomb on you and then you got to leave it in the safe zone, how do you make sure that's what you're doing?
You increase the time that you go in that safe zone.
Okay.
Because it may be a conversation that you say, you know what, it's too much. We have to stop now, and we have to come back to this later.
Yes.
Give me a chance to process it and to cool off. But during that time of processing and cooling off, you can't keep saying, I can't believe you. You can't make it so much of a negative. It's something that you have to understand. And then when you come back, your question should be, what was it that made you uncomfortable to where you didn't feel like you could come to me with that? So we can get rid of that. So that way going forward, we don't have that, whatever caused you to feel like, oh, maybe I can't. Because if you love somebody and you trust them, you have to know and be comfortable that whatever come or go, we're going to work through it.
That's good. That's good. I like it. Now, I think one of the important things to do in marriage is also have someone like you all. So if there's a disagreement, if there's something we cannot figure, or they cannot figure out on their own, they have a safe person to go to. I remember the first advice my dad gave me in marriage was, honey, anything you don't want nobody else to know, don't tell. I mean, anything you're gonna forgive him for, don't stop telling. And opposite. But and I talk to him. And so, but now knowing that we have, if we cannot come together, and I think that is so important, because it doesn't matter how long you've been married, there should be a trusted source that you have, especially a trusted source that is rooted in God, and rooted in godly principle. And so that source is not somebody that will take either side. We can't talk to them. So I can't give them a heads up on the conversation. It all has to be brought out. So I think that sometimes people don't take advantage of outside, maybe therapy, coaches, godly counsel. So I would like for you to talk for a moment about how important it is to have somebody that is in your corner, or in your marriage corner.
And it's valuable to have that. For one, what I teach people when I counsel them is, first of all, you need a safe word. So that if you're out and you're talking and discussing and you feel like it's going too far to where have something that you can say where both of you know that, okay, we're going to stop here and we'll discuss that later. If something come up and you say, oh, you know what, we need to talk about that. You never let anybody else know, even if something does come up that you haven't discussed, you never let them know that.
That's good.
So when you get back, then you can say, you know what, we need to put this on the calendar for our safe time. Because when we talk about this, it needs to be in a non-judgment setting.
That's good.
And you have to, I mean, like for us, we decided no matter what happened, we're gonna be together. Yes. So we can be together happy, or we can be together miserable. And when
there was no outs.
Right. And when you have that foundation, you know that, okay, we got to work with this. So when you have out and about, you also realize, even with the person that you feel like this is who we go to, or I need to talk to and load things on, it have to be a trusted person that, one, is not going to hold the other person accountable for whatever may be going on, and two, someone that's not so deeply involved in your life that they're going to instantly go this way or that way. It have to be trusted, and you can't just trust everybody. I don't care if it's mother, brother, sister, friend, whatever. Everybody can't be trusted with all information, because we can have a disagreement today and tomorrow morning we cool.
Yeah.
But the three people in the family I've told, now it might be 6 months or never. They may. Yes. It's because I've got a niece right now that there's some things that she just look, y'all did my uncle wrong. I would never ever forgive. And I mean, this stuff that happened like years ago. And because that's just the way she is. So you have to make sure what information you let and leave, because this is your safe zone. Yes. This is your haven. Anything that you let outside of this house is open game.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So keep it in, like I say, even if we are not necessarily on one accord, once we step out that door, we are one, and nobody never knows because it's not their business.
Yeah.
So
like that. I like that. I think it's so. You got something to say before I start talking?
No, go ahead.
I think it's so important because I think marriage, before I say, before you say I do, once you say I do, and everything in between, we get this fantasy about marriage. And I think we get a fantasy about marriage because one, marriage is, believe it or not, it is not as popular or talked about in ministry. The family dynamic, being one accord with your husband and wife, you don't really see those. You don't really see those anymore. Once you see one-sided advice or different things, but you don't really see like husband and wives both going to church. You don't see the family being the root of the foundation of ministries. And I think it's so important that we have these discussions about pulling down the fantasy of being married, because just like I was telling somebody today, I said we pray different now because now we're married with a purpose. And so now we pray over that purpose and the purpose for our marriage, because the enemy does not mind you being married. He don't want you to know your purpose in being married. He don't want you to know the foundation of which you're married on. He don't want you to leave generation wealth or generations.
Yes.
He wants everything broken. He don't want to see kingdom families.
right.
And as leaders, we have to do a better job of making sure we protect the foundation of the institute of marriage, or however you want to say it.
Right, because it's so important that we I think what's happened, the church has adapted the world style of marriage. Get together, and if it don't work, just find somebody else, or hey, do this or whatever. But we should be showing and setting the example. And in order for us as pastors or leaders to set that example, we have to live that example.
That's
and
good.
I can't teach you what I'm not living. That's why you don't see a lot of people teaching it, because they got too much going on. And see, as a leader, you even have to be selective about who you let know what's going on in your life. Because as leaders, unfortunately, they look at us as perfect, as like we don't have issues. Soon as they see you have an issue, now they want to bring it. Now the whole church looking at you sideways. So you have to be careful with that. But I think it's got to where so many pastors are not teaching about the dynamics of a marriage and a family, so you don't see it in church. They're not teaching it, and it's very important to understand your spiritual foundation. And when I talk to couples, the first thing I try to do is find out where they at spiritually when it comes to uniting, because being unequally yoked is a major thing, and they don't teach about that.
Yes.
But it can be problematic if you don't discuss that.
That's good.
Now, I was going to ask you about that. When you have one person in the church and then you have someone that's not in the church because of them being hurt and stuff like that, how,
or they just don't know,
or they just don't know. Yeah. What would you say for someone who's trying to get married, how they would go about either getting back into the church, or they going to separate churches?
Well, see, to me, that's really not a major explanation, because what you have to realize is that if you are deciding to get married, this is what happened, and a lot of people don't understand this. You have one complete world on this side, and then on the other side, you got another complete world. Both these worlds are going to collide to become one. That means that with that collision, it's going to be pain. It's going to be some days that things going to hurt, because you are combining one thing. You're making it one. So you have to discuss that before you go into the conversation that we may get married. Where are you at spiritually? How will we deal with that? Because a lot of people, they don't want to deal with it after. And I tell people this all the time. If you get married to someone And now you want to say, oh, they no good, and well, now it's your no good person.
Yeah.
You married them knowing that.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to have that detailed conversation. Are we going to the same church? If not, what you have done now, you're agreeing to getting married in a divided relationship.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make an agreement, because how can you be one if your pastor's teaching this and my pastor's teaching that? What if my pastor teach we don't pay tithes and offering, and your pastor is teaching that we do?
Mm-hmm.
So now you got a problem with your finances in your home. Your pastor may teach that the man is the man and what he says goes, but you may have a pastor to say that, well, the woman have equal power. So now you've got two different ideologies of marriage. So what you're doing is now creating confusion, and God is not the author of confusion. So what you have did is took the sanctity of marriage and put it in the hands of the devil, and you want God to work it out.
Wow, that was worth a whole love offering right there. To that again. So I think that's awesome, because I think when we talk about marriage, people don't want to think we have to make not really a disclaimer, but we're talking about kingdom marriage and for a purpose. If you want to live a worldly marriage, then that's you, as Tabla Brown said, that's your business. But we're talking about kingdom marriage and having been on a kingdom agenda and a kingdom assignment. And because it doesn't have anything to do with titles. If God put you together, it's for a purpose. Yes. And so I do believe wherever you get fed, you should be fed together. That way it won't be any division or any dividing or he said, she said. So I think that is very, very good advice. I think that's how a lot of things get messed up in a marriage. And I like how you said, especially when you're talking about the teaching and the submissive and different things, if you learning two different things, it can become a problem. So I think that's something you really need to talk about before you say I do.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then I have like a two-part question, because I know a lot of people always talk about, and I ask this every time I speak to married people, we talk about what if things doesn't change. So this is the person you marry and it doesn't change. But I have come to find out one of the questions why we was worried about when things doesn't change. What happened when things does change? How do you get over the hump when things does change? Because as you evolve, as you grow, you might see things like, you might come in and you don't want kids, but now you want children, or, so how do you deal with both aspects of people that are struggling in their marriage with it's the same way it's been for 15 years and one person trying to change? But sometimes I hear the advice, well, if you marry that person and things may not change and you have to be okay with things may not change, but I'm a little different on it, because I think as you grow, things should kind of change, or maybe not change, but grow. So what is your perspective and how do you speak to engage and married couples about those issues?
But when it comes to change, there's always going to be change. I mean, that's life. And what we look at it like, you're gonna have growth in a marriage. Either you're gonna grow apart or you're gonna grow together. If you're communicating on one accord, no matter what changes happen, you evolve together. But if you're not on one accord, well, I might evolve at a different rate than you, so we're not gonna be able to be on the same page, because I can't come down from where I have grew, or she can't come down. So now we got that distance that wasn't there before. Yeah. So you have to have an understanding of who they are. And if it's a situation where maybe you had a conversation, say, I don't want kids. I never want kids. That's my thing. 5 years into the marriage, one person decided, well, now I do want kids. There's nothing wrong with that, but you also still have to remember the original conversation trumps any other conversation. You knew that I did not want kids coming in. We discussed it. And that's why you can't just have a one-time discussion. Hey, do you want kids? No, I don't want kids either. And then go get married. No, that's a conversation I think you should spend at least 3 to 6 months. Keep talking about
Yes.
that, because the closer you get, and I say especially with women, the more in love they become with a person, the more they may think, wait, it might be nice to have a child with this person. I never wanted it before. So you have to look at it like that. And if there's a situation where you feel like, okay, I'm in church, I've been in church, and I love church and everything is good, but the person that I'm in love with don't want to go to church, that means that first of all, you need to kind of look at what priorities have you set for your life, that you would fall in love with someone that doesn't love your God.
Oh, that's good. Wow. Yeah.
So you have to really look and see, and if that's the case, is that person someone that's coming to you to destroy what you've already built in your relationship with God? Because they may be good for the first 2 or 3 years. Oh yeah, I might go to church. I'm thinking about going to church, but the whole 3 years of dating, they've never stepped foot into the church until you say I do.
Yeah.
So you have to look at these things and say, okay, I'm a church going person. So if it's something that you're not into, fine. But I don't want to cross into marriage, and I know that we're unequally yoked or we're not on the same page.
Wow.
So it has to be that. That's why I say conversation is so important. You have to know what you're dealing with. You have to know what you're accepting, because if you marry someone knowing that they have told you, I'm not going to change, I ain't going to church, I've never been to church, I've been hurt. So you have to say, are you going to be, one, strong enough to say I can live my life like that with someone who's not saved? Or two, do you really have the faith that it would take to pray them to where you want them to be? That's a whole different talk and walk when you're talking about having faith, because now you're not only trying to protect yourself and what you know about God, but now you have decided to war against the enemy for someone who's already in the enemy's camp. So you're sleeping with the enemy and you're behind enemy lines. That's a war that you have to be really ready to fight if you want to.
Wow. I'm telling you, these okay, but no, these are so important, and I thank you all for joining us. And I pray that the listeners, and if anybody watched the replay, will hear this, because I think it will save them so many. Not that you won't trials and tribulations, but unnecessary warfare. Because some warfares you fight, it's just really unnecessary. You don't really have to fight them. And I love how you said it all really starts with a conversation, and being okay to have that conversation with the person you're getting ready to marry. I think that you have to be able to look within yourself. If you could not have a conversation with the person you saying you're going to spend your life with. I know when we got married, I think he told me all his business, but I kind of enter into my, now I talk too much, but it's so important, because I don't think people realize how much the enemy is coming after marriages. Season, like he's trying to stop them. He's trying to stop the purpose of marriage. Even before they start. So I think it's so important to have these conversations before it starts, because that way you don't have to, like you said, be behind enemy lines. I never heard it put like that, but I'm glad you said it like that, because you don't think about that. You think, oh, I love them enough to war for them, but then you get tired of warring. So you want to, face that fight.
Because it's like you're fighting a fight. It's like to say, I can't want something for you more than you want it for yourself. Right. So I'm not only fighting for you, I'm fighting against you, because this is not something that you want. And I don't want to lose myself in trying to save you. And now I'm lost because I'm so much trying to get you together. So we have to understand that when it comes to marriage, when it comes to religion, we have to be on one accord. And sometimes sometimes I'll go to her about something I'm a minister about, and I give her certain scriptures and we kind of go over them or whatever. Or sometimes she'll ask me a question and stuff. And if I don't understand it, well, then that means that I've got to study so that I can have that question. That put me in a frame of mind that I have to make sure that I can answer her questions, or we find an answer together. But marriage is easy if you understand what marriage is.
Yeah.
The reason it's complicated because a lot of people just think marriage is now you have the same last name and you live together.
Yeah.
You know, people do that every day. It means nothing, but marriage is knowing that you love that person so much that you're willing to give whatever it takes to see that they are happy.
That's good. That's good.
So,
You know, there's something you brought up when we was on the podcast about you and Lady Greta, about we was talking about submission. It was good. It was good. It was good. Now she gave me that eye. No. But no, we was talking about submission, and he was explaining about the house situation, and you knew the timing of it. And I think that is so important. Because you know, we talk about the husband taking the lead and the husband doing something, but being so much in a partnership together that, you know, if she gets it, you trust her enough. Go ahead and move. So if you both can talk about, you don't have to talk about the situation, but talk about the importance of you know, when we talk about submission, about being partnerships in marriage, or listening to one another.
okay. Well, I mean, I can talk about it, even the situation, because here's something that we have learned. Now, I'm the brake, she's the gas. She's like the go and everything. But at the end of the day, because of the way God has set relationships, the man has the final say. Now, when you say that, see, people think that means that, oh, once I say something is done. No, that means that if I say this is the final decision, if that goes left, I have to have a plan B. Because now I got to explain, okay, now this is what you said, it didn't happen. How are we going to resolve that? Because this is your plan that we're following. As the man, we're following your plan. Now, with us, like I say, with the house, we both have said we know that we're going to move. It was just like we both knew that. But, you know, with me, I'm doing the ministry, the podcast, and so many other things. Sometimes I may not hear that specific timing. But that's the importance, and that's the thing that's so good about having a relationship where you're on one accord. Because when she speaks, I know that she's not going to just bring me something out the sky. I know that if she said God told her something, God told her. So she was like, we need to get ready to get this house and everything. And I'm like, okay, fine. Because I wasn't pressed, because I just was, I'm good. And then she said, well, let's just see what we'll qualify for. So we did that. Then we got the letter. And then soon as, I looked up, I'm like, baby, why you getting boxes and you got a welcome mat in the car? And we haven't looked at their house. I mean, but because her faith was where I know what God told me, so I'm getting ready now. And I'm like, I come home, I'm like, you unpacked another box? The whole garage, but she knew what God had told her. And I knew enough to trust her. So had I been macho and said, well, God ain't spoke to me when I'm moving, we would have missed a major blessing. Because the way so much fell through with this house, I could see that it was God, because it was stuff that was just happening. And I was like, yeah, this has to be God. But when it comes to being submissive, I think the church teach the wrong understanding of what it means to be submissive. Because in order for her to be submissive to me, I have to be submissive to God. So I cannot expect her to follow a contract that I'm not upholding.
Oh, that's good.
So I have to do my part. So by her trusting in me and who I am, and I trust her, we really don't have that. It's not like, if the dishes need to be done, it's no problem for me to go and wash the dishes. Or, stuff for, just little things like that. But you understand that being submissive means that you love one another, you trust one another. So, I know that she, it's something that we really never had to talk about, though. We just, so I just trust her.
Oh, that It's sweet. No, I love that. You have something to say, Lady Greta? Okay.
But see, even let me explain this, because I really want people to understand how love works and understand. Because see, I speak in the public all the time. It's not a big deal. I mean, somebody can call me up tomorrow and say, "Hey, I need you to preach." Okay, I'm cool.
Yeah.
This is really probably about the first time she's ever been on a live, ever. Because this song, she's like, no, because it's not her thing.
Yeah.
But she loved me enough and trusted me enough to know that I'm going to carry her and protect her and not put her in an uncomfortable situation. Yeah. So my daughter's behind her. She's over here laughing. She's cracking up. But we love one another. And so I said, hey, let's do that. And she's like, okay, let's do it. But that was the trust, because a few years back, maybe should have no, it ain't gonna happen. Yeah. But see how things go. So that's why you gotta just learn how to work together.
I love that. You hear me talk all the time, and then he'll say something, but that's the dynamic of what we do. Now in other arenas, you'll hear him talk a lot of times, especially if you're talking about trucking, you'll hear him talk. Football, you hear him talk all day. But I love the simple fact that she showed up.
Right.
She showed up either way, and I love that, because sometimes we put those things that because of our titles and our position that our spouse have to do this, do that, but she's a force in her own right. She's her own lane, in her own authority, but together when you both show up, it blesses people, because sometimes you have the person that is talkative, you have the person that it's the person, but he shows up, like you said, he shows up because of me. He shows up because he just got off of work. So I love that, because I think before you say I do, you have to define your marriage. And I think it took us a long time. And so that's why we're trying to help other people. Let's go ahead and define your marriage. So nobody else won't define it for you, nor would anybody tell you how to run your household.
Right.
Trying to put your household in somebody else. I tell people all the time, the foundation is the same, but how God is going to do it is different. And so the foundation, the principle is still on Jesus Christ, but y'all might move a different way than somebody else. So I love it. I love her smile, her laugh.
Thank you.
I love it. I mean, when it comes to ministry and stuff, I mean, she's always known that I was going to be, elevated to a different level. And there's even times I would tell her, I say, baby, I feel an elevation coming. I just feel like I'm going to be doing more, and I don't want to do more. And she's like, look, you better be obedient to God, So we discuss things, and she's never shocked at whatever I'm doing, because I always like to make sure that we conversate, we communicate, we know what's going on. And I just think that just makes it so much easier. Now, see, she's quiet. But if there was a lady in having some issues, then she can speak, because she'll step up and like, hold up, let me, so, but she know her lane, and I understand that, so I don't have a problem. I think the biggest problem I think we see is that people try to force people in positions that they're not called to do, and then you start having a lot of issues, because now I'm driving and I don't have a license.
That's good.
I see that a lot in the church.
And I'm more behind the scenes. It's not quiet on this side.
Right. Yeah, because she can talk now.
Yeah. Because she watched, because when we was at that event, she might wasn't doing that talking, but I was like, who said that? She's like, that person right there said. Everybody just talking, that person that he will watch, and he would tell us as soon as we get back in the car, he's like, I know you want to hook up with that person. I know you want to do something with it, but he like, but I seen the way they move. How you seen that? How you talk? You have to have somebody.
Same way.
Yes,
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
to have somebody that can watch. And so I
Yeah.
love that. I love the dynamic of your marriage. I love that, and it's unapologetic. It's unashamed about your roles, because when you know your purpose and you know your assignment, you don't have to cross into eeach other lane.
Yes.
Mhm.
You know, and so I love that. So before we kind of wrap up here, can you give any advice that we have not already gave? And plus, I want you to give your information out, because I'm telling you, I sometimes I try to wake up early, Pastor. I try to wake up early, but I'm gonna do that because I love hearing you teach. I love it. I think that we have moved so people don't catch on to different things because you're not shouting, you're not screaming, but
Mhm.
you're still going home divided. You're still going home,
Mhm.
you know, defeated. You don't shout your wig off. You don't lay it all on the floor, but you're still going home in depression.
Mhm.
Even in a marriage, that is so important that that you get somewhere and somebody is teaching you, not just preaching at you, but giving you the tools to survive. So when I want you both all to give just give us some, you know, advice or something you want to leave with them, and tell us more about your ministry.
Well, one thing I tell people is before you say I do, you know your I don't.
Oh, that's good.
Because there are a lot of people that get married and then you down the road, they're like, well, I don't do this, I don't do that. And well, I never knew that. Or it may be somebody who say, I never cook. Well, it's in the beginning, you're so lovey-dovey, you don't worry about that. You go out to eat and all that. So it's not a big issue. But then a year into the marriage, it's like, wait a minute, now that's a problem. So make sure you know that I don't.
Oh, wow.
And make sure you know what your deal breakers are. Don't tell them 3 years in the relationship. Oh, well, if this happened, you should have known. No, because you never told me that.
Good. That's
So,
good.
and I always tell people, if you got too many deal breakers, that means you got a bad deal.
Oh, wow.
Go through with it.
Lucky man. That is good.
So, and I always tell people, a marriage will never explode. It always implode. It's always from the inside.
Yeah.
Now, if it's outside influences that you have brought in, it still is imploding because you brought something outside inside, and so there's problems. So we make sure that we never. What did you say?
And one rule we have is nothing comes across through our front door that would upset this household. If so, it has to go. There's no discussion.
Yeah.
If it's upsetting either one of us, it's got to go.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
Can you expound on that part right there? What you mean?
Okay, let me give you a hypothetical because
people because it is
right. Okay, say for instance, if I have a nephew and he call up and say, "Hey, Unc, I need a place to stay for a couple of weeks, and I'll be out your house." And after that, and I say, "Okay, we discuss it. Everything's cool." Week 1, no problems. Week 2, he started doing things that's disrespectful, like he lived there. We're watching TV. He come in and just flop down, change the channel or whatever, or come in drinking or whatever, doing things that's not cool.
Yeah.
But see, now you're bringing in stress. So you gotta go. I don't care if we gave you 4, 5, 6. You gotta go now because you're bringing stress into the house.
Yeah.
And there's no discussion between us. It's an agreement. Anything that upsets us, gotta go.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's another. But that is good. No, because I think that is so important, because you start trying to please people on the outside. Trying to, so if we kind of have a similar thing, like once we discuss it, and if it's if it can't come in agreement, it has to go. Nothing can reset our household. This is
That's right.
Our household. And if you pulling something below that standard, God bless you, but you can't do it here.
Right.
So I think that is awesome, because I think sometimes the way my heart set up. I don't want everybody in, but I love the fact about him that I don't use that as a part. Like, you just too hard on people. Give them a second, but that's true. If it upsets the household, we learn how to move in unity. We learn how to move as one, and I think that's very, very important. That if you're not willing to move as one, don't get married. That's to be the first indication that if somebody else is ruling outside your household, then you might not want to get married if you can't move as one together. Because I used to have an opinion circle, but now we moved that opinion circle, and I'm telling you, because sometimes we've been through 19 years of marriage and been together for over 21 years, so we had to learn these things. We had to learn these things getting married young. So I think I love all the kingdom advice that you were giving, and I think that it is so necessary, especially for young people to understand, because or young marriage as well. That marriage is sacred. That everybody know your business, and I love how you said if it upsets us and we can't agree, it's no discussion. We already know it's. I think that is a great. I love that.
You just work together, move together, and you can have a slinky relationship, and that's where I move, then you move. I move, then you move. That's a slinky. That's not a relationship. You don't need that. You got to move together on one accord. Yes. So it's just about knowing one another, discovering one another. Like I say, if you have the hard conversation before you say I do, you don't have to have that conversation afterwards where you may have to say I don't. And now, how many years have you invested that you got to go away?
Yeah, I love that. And then I'm going to tell you about your thing, but I want to say this. The one thing that I love about you both is I love the kingdom assignment that you have. And I think it's so important when you're married to have other people that has kingdom assignment. You said something so key earlier about you can't teach something that you're not living. And so when the first day we met you all, I was like, oh, they love each other, look at them. But you need the evidence like that. You need people that in your corner. So I'm saying this to say this to married people. Get married people that is on the same level or above what you're doing to keep your marriage going and flowing. That can speak the word of God in your marriage, concerning your marriage, and not just the person. And then when you see them outside, they ain't just pastor and everybody. They husband and wife. They so we thought we were gonna have to move tables. No, I'm just joking. No, honestly, to know that is kingdom. Love is kingdom. To see you out, and just in that realm, you can see the love that is on. Y'all was laughing and loving. They were laughing like two little kids. It's so okay. But no, you need to know, especially in kingdom marriage, that God wants you to have fun. Exactly. God wants you to have fun. We used to be more probably more uptight, like we can't do that. We can't. I seen y'all at a concert the other week. I said, look at that. So take time for yourself. I love it. You got something to say before?
No, I just want to if you can expound on, because I hear a lot of people that say they scared of counseling and stuff like that because they don't want nobody in their business, but counseling saved our marriage.
And they thebomb.com, just to plug that real quick.
And I try to tell people, don't be afraid to be able to open up to somebody, because that's a part of trying to connect and heal with your spouse. So I just wanted to for you to let people know how important that is, to be able to do that.
Yeah, because see, I think our culture of people we have, or our race of people, we put a stigma on therapy, counseling, and things like
Yeah.
that. But it's very important because you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times people are scared to go to counseling. It's because there's so many things that they have hid in their suitcase when it's unpacking.
That's
and if
good.
they go to counseling, now it's got to come out.
That's good.
Get exposed. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I say if you don't have no secrets, but then you don't have to worry about that, and you have to be open. But again, even if you decide that you want counseling, understand that you're going to counseling to correct whatever problem you may have. So whatever you hear or find out, it's not to be weaponized, but you strategize and understand it so you can get better together.
Yes.
But you always know that even if you study the Bible, it constantly speaks of people finding other people to mentor them, to speak to. God always had people going to other people in order to get understanding. So that's good. We have to get back to that. Because we're nobody is born intelligent enough to know everything. So God has blessed other people with gifts to be able to assist you with whatever problem you may have. Just make sure that you do your due diligence to make sure who you're speaking to is a reputable person.
Yes.
That's YouTube. I have to take it off. Amen. I think that is awesome. I think that is awesome. So I would like for you to tell us more about your ministry. Trying to block this thing off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get them from time to time. I just block them and keep on going. Yeah.
I don't know how to. Oh, I don't share it. I was trying to block it, but
well, yeah, if you go to your comment section, you should be able to hit it, and it says show or stop showing.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So
it's YouTube. It's all YouTube. But thanks for watching. Learn something about marriage, love. You know, everybody's a soul.
Definitely.
Moment. And so tell us about your ministry. Tell us about what you tell us about your ministry. Tell us how they can get in touch with you.
Well, you can go on. It's on Facebook, and it's Living in Grace Ministries. It's on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and anything that most of it's under my name, because I don't. Some people have all them different crazy names. I try not to do that. So if you go to my page and you need to come, get in touch with me, all you have to do is just DM me and I get back with you. It's Living in Grace Ministries, and we're on at 7 a.m. every Saturday. And a lot of people, if you don't get up at 7, you can always go back and the replay and watch it or whatever. We just want to make sure that the kingdom is getting kingdom food, that we are feeding them the truth. And like I said, we don't teach what's popular. I'm not social media driven. I'm not going to teach about stuff that you see on the media, and then all of a sudden I'm gonna have a message. I don't think God moved like that. So I just make sure that I'm teaching what God has called me to teach. I make sure I'm teaching the truth. So again, like I say, every Saturday, and sometimes I do the replay. And on like I say, the first and third Saturday is when we do the Living in Grace, not Living in Grace, but we do It Takes a Village podcast. And again, even though that's not a spiritual platform, we still teach, ministry stuff. Everything that I do is going to be the base foundation. It's going to be, for the kingdom. So if they want to reach out, they can just DM me, and we pray for people. God has put us all together to do something. I always tell people, if you are breathing, that means that God has a purpose for your life.
Yes.
You're never too far away from God for him to reconnect you and restore you to your rightful place in the kingdom.
I love that. I thank you all. I'm excited about December the 3rd. We are going to have after some impartations, some conversations, stuff that sometimes you can't always talk about on Facebook Live, but being there with couples that actually want godly foundation. So it's not going to be too churchy, but it is going to be kingdom. But we're going to laugh and, put
Fun.
marriage. And I'm excited that you all are joining us on the 3rd. You all had some wonderful godly counsel and advice. I love that because I think sometimes again marriage get put on the back burner, and that's a lot of Christians suffering today. There's a lot of followers of Christ suffering today in their marriage. So I love it. I thank you all. I thank you all for tuning in with DNS Ministry, a Stronger Together Ministry on today. Always, I thank my husband for joining, talking this. Not that's too much this time, but no, we're excited. We're excited about what God is doing in marriage. It is so important. So thank you all again. I'm gonna close it out because I'll be talking forever. So
Thank you guys.
yeah, good
We
night.
definitely enjoyed it. Definitely, and we'll be in touch. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Yes.
And, I'm looking forward to December as well.
Me too. Hanging out.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good night.
All right.
Bye bye.